Welcome to Heather Ewing, the CRE Rundown. I am your host, Heather Ewing, and today I have a special guest from Delaware. I have none other than Doug Motley. Doug, welcome.
Thanks, Heather. Great to see you and appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. Thanks for joining me today. So we've gotten to know each other just a little bit, but I wanted to introduce you to my audience. Can you share more about yourself?
Sure. I am a native Delawarean. I've been in the real estate business almost 20 years now. It's scary to say that. Started my career in banking, corporate strategy, corporate finance, and through an acquisition, found myself looking for a different industry at the ripe old age of 25. And a friend connected me to someone who was in the real estate development business. We hit it off, and they were willing to take a risk on me, and finding people who are willing to be your champion and to take a risk on you is something special, I think, in life. And I was fortunate to have a couple instances of that, but this was certainly one of them. And got into real estate development, didn't know anything about real estate at the time, had done one real estate transaction, and that was purchasing a house. And I did that very poorly. Fortunately, I learned very quickly and actually ended up stepping into the chief financial officer role at this development company within being there 6 months. So it was definitely a sink or swim type of environment, and really learned so much in the couple of years that I was there. Learned the entrepreneurial, spirit through that experience, and that was the catalyst for starting my first company in 2009, I guess it was, where we were focused on investing in distressed office coming out of the GFC. And we did that very successfully. Performance was fantastic. Amount of capital raised was not tremendous, but if you're going to have something be wrong, it's better to be wrong on the capital than wrong on the performance. So that was my first entrepreneurial experience. And then in 2011, formed with several other partners a company called Jacklingo Asset Management, or JLAM. And that's what I've been co-running for the last 13 plus years now. We're a regional development and investment company that really focuses on overlooked markets and overlooked segments of the industry, but really have the capabilities to both acquire and develop a variety of different asset classes, which we think puts us in a pretty good position to succeed in a variety of different markets.
Right, the diversified portfolio, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So backing up a little bit, your statement of the sink or swim, I think anyone that is familiar with commercial real estate investing, any related arena of it, will understand that. And I've frequently thought that it reminds me of Darwinism playing out. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I guess we tend to have a lot of, I don't know if they're cliches or phrases, eat what you kill, sink or swim, whatever it may be.
Sharpen your pencil.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all relevant in different contexts. But, for me, it was finding that right environment of having the support and empowerment, to succeed, but also the culture or knowing I needed to be able to figure stuff out on my own. And that's, as we've built our company, that's a big thing that we pride ourselves on in terms of our culture, is finding the right people that have the right skill set and really empowering them to do, awesome work. And so I don't liken it quite, I personally don't think the sink or swim term is appropriate for our culture, because maybe it would be if you had a life jacket on, kind of thing, or you had somebody looking over you with a safety boat as you're swimming across the English Channel. So you've got support and you've got the team to help you succeed. And as a leader, I think our function is really to help set goals, empower people, and remove roadblocks, and really kind of get out of the way. And so I think that sink or swim approach or mentality is what I was in, but it's a little bit, we look at it a little bit differently here in our company today.
Which is ideal, because it's one of those, I think when you're beginning, everything is new, there's so much, and you're trying to gather it all in. But with the years, the decades of experience in creating your own brokerage firm, that you're able to determine the environment, the the atmosphere that you want to promote, which is definitely more of a relationship, collaboration, growth, which is something that I align with too, because you'll get a different feel from each of the different firms and investors. And it's really selecting who do you want to tie ships to in that sense, because it's like the old adage of birds of a feather. I think the same is true of brokerage and investing, that you align with different people that have similar values. And when people are investing significant amounts of money and assets, you want to make sure that you're connected with the right group.
Absolutely. And from the investment side, we've invested about $500 million in a variety of different strategies over the last 13 years or so. And, that finding the right partners on the brokerage side is really important. So you said the word relationship, and that is probably I think the most important word in our whole business, because, finding people that have a similar mindset to you, but are willing to take the time to understand your mindset, as well as, help provide value for you as an investor working with brokers that are very proactive and trying to, help you find what you're looking for or help you achieve your goals, enables them to also achieve their goals. So it's a very cooperative environment when it's set up correctly. And I've definitely seen the other side of that, which is just, maybe less worried about a win-win and more worried about that one person winning, and irrespective of what may be happening to the other people involved in the transaction.
Right. Two very different vantage points as far as short-term quick win versus the long relationship. And I think too, like yourself, of creating those long-term relationships are really satisfying. And when you deliver at a high level and are proactively looking for ways to increase their returns and maybe do something uniquely and outside of the box that's going to benefit them, people value and appreciate that. And it's very reciprocal. So as we advance down, you had mentioned about various asset classes. Is there one right now that you're really leaning into, or one that you think is going to shift the market a little bit more in the upcoming months or year?
Sure. So great question. And I think really interesting timing as it relates to where we are. So we've invested across a variety of asset classes, but we saw the lending market changing very dramatically starting about 2 years ago with the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, the regulatory environment changing for virtually every lender out there, interest rates increasing, and just the whole dynamic of commercial real estate lending kind of getting turned on its head. And we saw some similarities to what happened in the GFC. Definitely some big differences, but we saw some similarities. And at the same time as supply of capital or debt capital was getting massively constrained, you have more than $1.5 trillion of commercial real estate loans maturing. So you have this giant demand for debt capital, but you have a constricting supply. And so we saw an opportunity, or we believe that there were going to be some things that break, or just kind of a market dislocation. And so we put together a private credit vehicle to provide rescue capital, subordinated debt, and preferred equity across asset classes. So a little asset class agnostic in the lower middle market space. So we think that that's a really compelling space to be in right now. But we are also continuing to lean in on the residential development side, and that's both for rent and for sale product, because the U.S. is short 3 to 6 million houses, depending on which number you look at, and that's not a problem that's going to get fixed very quickly. So we think that over the long term, the residential segment of the market makes a lot of sense to be an investor in. I
agree. And where would you say that mindset settles in with all of this?
Wow, that's a great question. So I think you can look at it from the macro perspective, and we're not in a business that changes by the minute like trading stocks might be, but we also don't have a crystal ball and know where things are going. So you have to make sure that the fundamentals are strong. no matter what may be happening with things outside of your control. So from a mindset perspective, I think that's, super important to have stability, have compassion, have understanding. And then from a more micro perspective, we all have transactions that are getting ready to close and something comes up and it's going to delay it or push it, or you catch a curveball at the last minute, and having the, again, kind of awareness and almost inner peace of everything's going to be okay. Having that mindset really can just make doing what we do a lot more enjoyable or less stressful. And that's not something that I learned naturally. It had to be, it was a very intentional kind of process for me to get there. And so had some very challenging transactions where things were coming up and I would get like physically ill. And I was like, okay, something's not right here. This is not good.
Right.
And for a variety of different reasons, I ended up, I had the opportunity to work with an executive coach who was really very active and a deep believer in the power of mindset and how that can impact your effectiveness. And he really turned me on to a couple great books and some really interesting ways of thinking that I've put to work over the last 5 years that have really increased my impactfulness and my effectiveness in everything I do, both internally with our team as well as externally, and how we think about investment strategies or how we transact with others.
Definitely. And I think too that frequently in life, it seems like people want to put everything in a silo. Your career is here, your personal life, all these other aspects, and they're all interrelated. So if you're crushing it in one, chances are it's going to flow into the other and vice versa. And that's where too, I really like having that bigger macro vantage point. And so with your example of the executive coach, they're able to see that bigger picture, know all of your goals. Obviously, we know ourselves, but they also are able to see that little part of us that we may not always acknowledge or think of when we're moving through. So it's really who you become on the journey, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think for people who are going back to the kind of relationship topic, but genuineness and authenticity matters. And you can see that in as you're interacting with people, whether it's in work or in leisure activities, you can see that, right? I mean, we're all people, and you can tell if somebody's BSing you or they're legitimate or they're being authentic. And that matters in everything we do, right? Like if you meet somebody out at a restaurant and they just seem fake, you're not going to be, interested in talking with them more. If you meet somebody in business and they're just authentic and they are listening and seem to really be interested in what you're doing and how they can help, you're going to want to do business with them. So I think exactly as you said, is we're all people, and you don't compartmentalize it, from a work, outside of work kind of bucket.
Yeah, and I think too, everyone has a gut feel, a gut intuition. And it's one of those, sometimes you see people with a smile and it's just like, you can just feel though that something is off. And so to your point, having just that crystal clear trust in someone makes all the difference. And again, you're not investing, even something very small. They're typically big amounts, and you want to know that your money is being invested properly and that you have a good relationship with the investor. So what would you say is a good way? So you've definitely, transitioned over the years from feeling kind of sick with different deals to now of being in that space of stability, of kind of having your resources. What are a couple of those resources that you would recommend as a go-to to really help people stay on the up and up as they're moving through stressful deals or capital raises, things of that nature?
I think just physical exercise is a big one, whether that's, just walking and letting your brain meander as you do that, or I'm big into lifting weights, and that's a good, get out some stress by doing that, or meditating and finding things that really help you focus, help you strip out some of the noise. I'm also a pilot, so for me, going up and flying around is something that you still need to be obviously paying attention to what you're doing for safety and all that, but it's just kind of a Zen space for me. So finding those things that really make you feel good and kind of invigorate the body. There's a big connection, I think, between the physical body and how well you're taking care of your body and how well your mind is functioning and how effective you ultimately can be in work. But I know you're really active in athletics or endurance athlete, Heather.
Yes.
So I'm curious, how do you think about that same question?
I agree completely. I frequently am asked, how do you find the time to run marathons and also run your firm? And for me, it gives me energy similar to weightlifting for you. And it's mindset, because when you don't feel like running and you choose to because it's choice, I think that sends that repeated message throughout your entire system, mentally, physically, otherwise, that you're a person of your word, that you keep your commitments and that you deliver for yourself and for others. And I don't know how people do it without a physical outlet. Well, I guess I do, because many, many decades ago, I used to not really work out and didn't make the best choices. So it's one of those, it's a staple of my life. I look forward to it. Like with anything, you're going to have days you don't want to do it, but you're always glad that you followed through and did it, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So my big question for you, Doug, is what does living fully mean to you?
That's an unbelievable question.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's a hard hitter. That's why I've got you all warmed up.
Could probably talk for a really long time on what that might mean and philosophize, et cetera. But I think for me, it really comes back to that relationships concept and finding people, and this includes people you work with internally, friends that don't have anything to do with work, but building meaningful relationships. And meaningful can mean a whole bunch of different things, but I think interacting with people is one of my favorite parts of the business, and whether that's interacting with our investors that are entrusting us with a significant amount of their capital for us to invest. Whether that's dealing with brokers who are, advising us or helping us source opportunities, or representing us in leasing our properties, or vendors, all over the whole spectrum. But really getting to know people and learning about them and helping them succeed. And it may be direct ways, it may be indirect ways, maybe opening up doors for them, it may be giving somebody a hand up at a time when they need it. But really, those things I find so rewarding. And that's, I think that's the most important thing for me.
Definitely. And actually, you know what? I do have one more question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. So your TEDx speech, which is something I would love to do one day, tell our audience a little about your how to harness the and.
So it was an unbelievable experience, and anybody who has the opportunity, definitely try and step up and take it. Very exciting, and it was a very sometimes uncomfortable but really rewarding experience for me. But my talk was about the power of the and really trying to, this goes back to the mindset question, which I think is a great one, but trying to find more than just maybe the obvious answer in things, and that could be this property is an industrial property. Well, maybe on its face it is that, but maybe there's a way to reposition it and extract a lot more value. So it's better off being a multifamily property. And that's just a really kind of cheesy example. But as we go to mindset, I think we talk about this a lot internally, but how are there ways where I can have the outcome that I'm looking for, and you or the counterparty on the other side can also get what they're looking for? And a lot of that comes down to asking questions and listening and trying to understand different people's viewpoints. So it's an idea and it's a concept that I try and pull into my thinking, as much as I can, because I think there are so many applications to it. Sometimes it's very, specific as to how we look at a real estate investment. Other times it's negotiation that we're entering, and it's not just what do I want, what do I need, but hey, maybe there's a way where I can get that, and the seller or the buyer, I can help them accommodate what it is that they're looking for. And I'm guessing that in your role as an advisor and consultant in the brokerage side, you probably have to do that quite a bit. And the most effective people and kind of bringing two perspectives together are the leaders in the industry.
Definitely. And I would say with the climate that we're in too, the and for me really comes from that creative vantage point of seeing it outside of the basic structure, what people have done, maybe how it's zoned, and creating the win. So with that, Doug, thank you so much for joining us. It was a true pleasure today. And folks, I will leave Doug's contact information because I know you're going to want to reach out to him. So Doug, thank you so much.